Welcome to TSK F1. My name's Rich, and this is your morning dose of F1 news. Please do make sure you've hit that like button and also subscribe to the channel. This morning, we're going to have a little conversation about Sebastian Vettel and what he said about Aston Martin and their failures. And really, there is one big story, and that's what the poll of the day is about. Mick Schumacher and Haas, the relationship has come to an end, and we're going to be talking probably at length about that. I could talk about that. I'm gonna try my best. I'm going to try my best to stay unbiased from the outset. I'm a Mick Schumacher fan, but if people have known me long enough, they'll know I used to be quite the Nico Hulkenberg fan. So we'll just have to see how this conversation goes, but I am going to try and stay. I'm judging it on its merits and as it is, but I am probably going to be a bit biased, and I'll apologise from the outset. So, Seb Vettel. What has Seb Vettel been saying? Well, it's nothing too bad, but the news is absolutely full of Mick Schumacher and Nico Hulkenberg right now, so I thought I would bring you this news. It's not really even news, but what he has said is, if I can sort everything out, that the car isn't as competitive as hoped, and they haven't really made any significant improvement. They're currently where they finished last year, and they wanted to finish higher. He's not pointing the finger, but he's just being realistic. They had high hopes, and they're not where they should be. And I'd love your input on this. Should Aston Martin as a team have kicked on? Should they have finished higher? What do you think on that? Personally, I think that towards the end of this season, it seems like they have kicked on somewhat. Maybe they initially went down the wrong route with their development with the car, because I can't remember at what race it was, maybe Spain, something like that. They completely changed the side pods to be more Red Bullish, even though actually, if you look at the detail, then while visually they kind of look like it, they're nothing like it really. But they changed everything, and I don't think they could just get it working and make it a Red Bull, and it's taken them time to understand. And I think actually in places Aston Martin have been really quite strong, because we saw Seb running very highly, didn't we, earlier, well, just in Brazil and actually in Circuit of the Americas. So there has been some performances, and actually Stroll was quite high up before he collided with Alonso at Circuit of the Americas. So I get where Seb's coming from. They're not where they should be. They should be higher, and I actually agree. I think in much the same way you could say Ferrari should have more points on the board. You know, I think that's the kind of, pinch of salt you could put on it. Ferrari should also have more points because of their strategic and reliability issues, and you could probably point the finger in the same way at Aston Martin. Had a couple of nightmare races, nowhere near, picked up a bit in the later races. Yes, but it's difficult because of the rule changes, and now the end of the year, the car's good, so next year I think they'll do better. I think they'll be somewhat resurgent. Good morning, Harry, Liam, Pascal, Rob, Dan, and Rob. And it looks like they've turned things around a bit later on. Yeah, I think they've been quite strong they've done kind of like Mercedes, haven't they? Mercedes have been stronger towards the end of the season. Now, I don't know whether that's through Aston Martin continuing to develop, or they've just understood the car. Of course, they had that, if people remember, that sort of innovative rear wing where they figured out how to put the end fences on the rear wing when really you're not allowed it, but they've gotten around the technical regulations very cleverly, which is meant to help. But I just thought I'd bring that to you, because really this entire show is going to be about the next subject, which is these two guys. Now, look, if you've been around my content in general for a long time, I know this channel is young. You'll know that I was a fan of Nico Hulkenberg. But I am a big fan of Mick Schumacher, and I can't help it. I'm very biased. His dad was my racing hero, but I'm going to try and I'm going to try and stay balanced because I know immediately people go, oh, it doesn't mean he's good because of his dad. No, I think he's good on his own merits. But let's read out what Mick had to say as he's been dropped by Haas in preference for Hulkenberg to take over. This is going to be my last race with the Haas F1 team. I don't want to hide the fact I'm very disappointed with the decision not to renew our contract. Nevertheless, I would like to thank both Haas F1 and Ferrari for giving me this opportunity. Of course, he was a Ferrari Driver Academy driver as well. Those 2 years together have helped me mature both technically and personally, and especially when things got difficult, I realised how much I love this sport. It was at times bumpy, but I steadily improved, learned a lot, and now know for sure that I deserve a place in Formula One. The subject is anything but closed for me. Setbacks only make you stronger. My fire burns for Formula One, and I will fight hard to return to the starting grid. PTW, prove them wrong. So that is what Mick has said about it. And saying there in the chat there, straight to Mercedes reserve driver. I don't know if you're saying that as if you think that. I think that's where he's going to go. I don't know if anything's been said, but I don't think anything's been said this fast yet. But I think that's where he's going to go, to the Mercedes reserve driver. There's been a lot of talk that maybe Danny Rick would take such a role or take that role over at Red Bull. But I think Mick would take that role because Jenson Button alluded to the fact that Daniel Ricciardo can't drive in free practice ones and stuff because of his age. So taking a Mick Schumacher, you're still able to put a young driver in the car and drive them and stuff. So a clever move for him, you think. What, to go to Mercedes, Liam? So that's what Mick Schumacher had to say about it. There is a poll in the chat there. Which would you pick, Mick or Nico Hulkenberg? Well, I think I'm not sure it's clever. I don't know if it's clever. It's probably the only move. I think it's the only move, really, for Mick Schumacher. I'm not sure what other options he's got. There are no race seats available, and I suppose it completely depends on what seat he could get as a reserve driver. But Hulkenberg, I think I've got a picture of Hulkenberg somewhere. Hulkenberg, there we go. He said, I feel like I never really left Formula One. I'm excited to have the opportunity to do what I love most again. We have work ahead of us to be able to compete with all the other teams in the midfield, and I cannot wait to join the battle. Team principal Guenther Steiner has said Hulkenberg's experience and reputation as a great qualifier and solid, reliable racer would help push the team up the grid. He shares our vision and can be a key player together with the rest of the team in building the foundations we've laid this year with our return to the points battle. I guess potentially the Williams seat if Logan doesn't get his super license. Yeah, they've said about how Mick is an option if Sargent doesn't manage it. The chances of him not making F1 are very slim. He's going to do it. It's complete formality, basically. I think he has to finish 5th in the championship or something. Is Hulk actually reliable? Look, so Hulkenberg. Look, I'll bring up some stats. But I know off the top of my head, he's done 9 seasons within F1. He's never had a podium. He's had one fastest lap that was in his first season, and I think it was at Brazil. He's had 2 fastest laps in Grand Prix. He is, for me, he's a driver I always wanted to push on. I always wanted him to take that extra step, but he never ever got that Mercedes, Red Bull, McLaren at the time, like up there drive. You know, he never got that potentially race-winning drive, and the only time it seemed like it might happen was at Hockenheim when he was driving for Renault. He um, he is exactly. Look, he's a Le Mans winner in 2015 with Porsche, I think it was, and he was beaten in the points by Danny Rick quite handsomely. I believe he's been beaten in the points by Carlos Sainz. I think they were teammates at one point. Um, so for me, he is a capable driver. As people keep saying, he should be a safe pair of hands. Now, will he score loads of points? The jury's out. Who knows? Who knows? He hasn't had a drive for 2 years. He's 35. And age, really, these days is just a number up to a certain point, but drivers can be older than they used to be. But we'll just have to see. Do you like how I got those stats off the top of my head and actually didn't pull up any stats? I'm a nerd. It could be what Mick needs, a break from driving pressure to just take everything in for a season at a top team, a bit of a reset. That's not a bad shout. I said yesterday, Théo Pourchaire, that is what they're talking about, his development, that as a driver, F2 doesn't give Pourchaire that much anymore in terms of experience. What Pourchaire really needs is to be around the F1 paddock, be in the engineering briefs, debriefs, and set up conversations around the media and learn out of the car. They've said basically that Pourchaire is rapid in the car. He's not ready out of the car for Formula One. Maybe Mick needs some of that. Maybe he needs some of that. As we've always said, Albon took a break and came back better for it. True, Harry, true. Seems harsh to dump Schumacher, but taking emotion out of it, I do think Hulkenberg will get better results. That's the bottom line. I don't know, Leighton. I really don't know if he will get substantially better results. But I suppose any points is better than, if he scores any more than Mick, then it's a result, isn't it? And I suppose Haas are a team where every single point counts, doesn't it? So I think Kevin Magnussen beats him over a season. I think probably. Yeah. K-Mag should beat him over a season. And you would have to say, probably based on this season, he'd score more points than Mick Schumacher next season. But, again, I have to put a little bit of a pinch of salt on this. Mick Schumacher's a young lad. He'll have had 2 seasons in Formula One. What would Mick Schumacher have done this season and next season? And I'm not saying it has set the world alight, but that is what you get with a young driver. Year-on-year improvement. Would he have binned it as much? Would he have scored more points? Would he have beaten a K-Mag? Would he have taken the off-season, came back refocused? These are all questions that you'll never know the answer for with a young driver once you've dropped them. But Nico Hulkenberg should be, as people say, be a safe pair of hands. He should be a safe pair of hands. He should bring the car home, and he shouldn't cost them millions of dollars in crashes. And I suppose even in that, for Haas, it's a result, isn't it? It is a result if even that is what's achieved, because, at what point you get prize money for going better in the constructors, but also the saving money from crashes. Now, it's such a shame, I think, that Mick Schumacher's crashes have been big ones as well. They've been big ones, haven't they? And they've cost him a fortune. They've not cost him a fortune, sorry, cost Haas a fortune. So I'm looking here to see if these are the quotes from Guenther Steiner. And yes, here we go. I've got quotes from Guenther Steiner here. I think that the experience of multi-years in Formula One that never have been with another team than us. When asked what Schumacher was missing, he says, I think that the experience of multiple years in Formula One that never have been with any other team than us. So I think he's saying he needs to be in another team, pretty much. So by Nico seeing, as a driver, 3 or 4 teams before, experience is key. And experience takes time to make. And in this moment, we don't have time because we want to move forward. We don't want to be where we are. Now we want to get better. It's not Mick's fault that we are where we are and we only have ourselves to blame, but we need to come up again, and there is a shorter way by taking a guy with a lot of experience, which has done this in multiple teams. Criticisms of how Schumacher had been treated at Haas, and asked if they gave him enough support. He said, absolutely, I think we did a good job. I think that, as I always said, we treat every driver fair and we do our best as we can. And sometimes it wasn't good enough for the team. I'm fully standing behind that, you know. It wasn't always him not performing. We had issues, we were not good enough, and we had to fix that. We need to fix that one. But I think we always gave him the best we could, and we're always fair. There was always equality with the drive of last year and this year. There was no issue with that one. Schumacher's time at Haas has cost crashes, but you can't just say, oh, he crashed. This wasn't good. I'm not trying to make it good now, but you can see how much influence these very good results, you know, they balance. You need to find a balance. So he's been pretty complimentary, isn't he, really, with what Guenther said. And look, through messages and things like that, with other people, many people seem to think that this has come from Gene Haas, that Haas has said, look, enough. And really, Haas does finance a lot of it. And it seemed, especially with them comments, because Steiner says what he thinks. And with those comments, that was the first time I've read them. I do actually go with that narrative now that it might be a Gene Haas sort of enough is enough financially type of thing. Now, is Hulkenberg the right guy for the job? Is Hulkenberg the right guy for the job? That's a question. Now, I don't mean this as a derogatory thing, but it would be hard to class Nico Hulkenberg as anything but exactly bang average as a Formula One driver. And you can say that with a straight face. He's had opportunities for podiums. He's never got one. He's always in and around the midfield, lower midfield, or midfield. He is. Around 10th is about his average championship position. And is he the right guy for the job? Going, you know, moving forward, is Hulkenberg the right guy for what Haas need? And I'm not sure. I can't really think of anyone else I'd put in that position. But it's kind of like Haas are returning to Haas of a few seasons ago. Though I was just about to say I'd rate Hulkenberg above Grosjean, but Grosjean's got a far better record than Hulkenberg in Formula One. So that as well, it's a curious one, isn't it? It is a curious one. Can I ask everyone to please hit that like button on the stream? Please do. And if you're new here, please do subscribe to the channel as well, because subscribing, you'll get the news bulletin every morning at 9 a.m. UK time, as well as other videos posted on the channel. And liking the stream just really, really helps. So thank you. Yeah, he didn't want it, Dan, did he? No, he didn't. Mick Schumacher deserves a F1 seat next year, David says. Should have kept Mick Schumacher. To move to go for Hulkenberg screams that Haas are not looking for immediate progression, just stability. That's that's kind of how I feel. I do get Steiner saying about the experience for Nico Hulkenberg. I do get that he's saying about that. It makes sense. It does make sense. But is Nico Hulkenberg the driver for success at Haas? It's not the right one for me for that, and I'm not having a go, but you know, you have to look at how it was a few seasons ago. They had Grosjean and they had K-Mag a few seasons ago. And I guess it was maybe a bit of a failed experiment with Mazepin and Schumacher. In my opinion, Haas already have a good, steady, reliable driver in K-Mag. Why do they feel they need another? Why not take a risk on someone that can develop or at least push the team? I don't think Hulkenberg is the right guy. Or on important moments he's been like, yep, exactly. Now, another thing I did just want to bring in, because I think it was last season and maybe the season before, there was a huge narrative around Formula One where social media was screaming it's time for these older drivers to let younger drivers have a chance. Now, I was against this. I was generally against this, mainly because people were saying it about silly drivers, like Alonso, who continues to prove how well he's doing. And really, Hamilton continuing to prove how well he's doing. But where are all those people at the moment where you've just dropped an F3 and an F2 champion for someone who, frankly, has never done anything in Formula One? I just thought I'd bring that back. How many seasons would Nico have left at F1 level? Well, there's the thing. How many seasons do you think Haas might get out of him? 2, maybe 3? Do you think he's going to be a success at Haas? Look, and I was a fan of Nico. I was a fan of Nico. I just don't see. Okay, he's bringing. I think this is probably going to sound bad. He's a very boring option, isn't he? He's a very boring option. Like, if they'd have gone for Danny Rick, if they'd have got Danny Rick, you get Danny Rick even out of the car. You're getting Danny Rick, aren't you? With Nico Hulkenberg, you know you are getting Mr. Average. And that sounds really bad. It sounds really bad. And I don't mean it to. But I think that's one of the things that's affecting me. You literally... You're getting rid of an F3 and F2 champion from a team to go to a 35-year-old who's never done anything in F1. Maybe that speaks volumes to how good Mick actually isn't. Maybe there's that. I think he'll be more successful than Mick has been, but we'll never know what Mick would do next season. It's one of those, yeah. Danny, Rick and Guenther would have their own double act comedy show. Yeah, imagine. How many seasons? I am interested at the answer to that. How many seasons do you think they get out of Nico Hulkenberg? It's just such a... Please do smash the like button. Yeah. Nico Hulkenberg. I do get with the program. I get it. It's financial. It's financial for Haas. I do understand that. 2, 3, maybe. You can't teach experience yet. True. So these are the stats here. Nico Hulkenberg has had 181 starts, 521 points, 1 pole, 2 fastest laps. And I think his career was 9 seasons full-time. I think driving for the likes of Sauber, Force India, Williams in his first season where he got his pole position, Renault, and obviously Racing Point and Aston Martin. And now he's back with Haas. You think he's gone at the end of next season? It's a boring appointment with very doubtful plus points, regardless of what Haas say. I just don't get it. Fair enough, Craig. They're taking less risky option, which from a business point of view, I can understand. They need points and less crashes. It all comes down to money. I suppose that depends if he's going to score points, doesn't it? Because, like, you know, it just depends if he's actually going to deliver points. But who knows? I suppose next season will tell, and we'll be able to judge at that time whether it's worked, won't we? Wonder if he was a cheap driver. Well, this... See you later, Liam. Cheers. This is an interesting one about it being a cheap driver. Now, I think it was on Drive to Survive about Mick Schumacher being integral to bring in the sponsor you can see here next to my head, 1&1. They wanted a German driver, and it makes me wonder 2 scenarios here. Whether they either fully do not need that sponsor anymore because of the MoneyGram sponsorship coming in next season, or they've spoken to 1&1 and said Mick isn't cutting it. The sponsor money you're giving us is going on paying for his crashes anyway. Can we bring in another German driver? We're thinking Nico Hulkenberg, and they've agreed. So that's another, I think it's 1&1. That's another sort of option on this story, you know. You could argue that he had never really had a good car to compete. You could argue that, but Daniel Ricciardo delivered in the same car, I believe, if we actually look at it, Cal. In the Renault, I think Danny Rick did all right in that car. I could be mistaken, of course. I probably am, but I thought Danny Rick did all right in that car. I'm just having a look now. What car was Daniel Ricciardo in that year? Let me have a look. I could be very wrong and mistaken. I am. I thought it was that season that he was in it. There was a season with the Renault, though. I thought, was he not Danny Rick's teammate at that point? But the best season he had was 7th in 2018. In 2018. But I do remember definitely having the thoughts that if Nico Hulkenberg had the car to deliver, he would deliver. I do remember having that. This means that Haas don't need money anymore because Hulkenberg is not bringing in many sponsorship. No, Pascal. I think he keeps 1&1. Is it unfair to compare him with Danny Rick, though? Ricciardo is a far better driver. Well, yeah, he's a driver. Like, that's how you decided someone's average, Carl. I mean, I think you've just said it, really. He is a bang average driver. He's not really I don't really know. You've just said it yourself. You don't mind the odd crash, pushing the car to the limit. Would this change have happened? Would this change have happened in the pre-cost cap era? That's a question I'd like for you guys to answer. Would this change have happened pre-cost cap? Do you think Haas would have made this change if they weren't so worried about that whole situation? It's an interesting one, that. I think it'd still happen. I'm being biased. I am a Mick Schumacher fan, but I wasn't a Nico Hulkenberg fan as well. It just saddens me, I think. I hope I see Mick Schumacher on the grid again. I really do, because he's been really good in previous series and up to F1. True, Dan. True. Teams like Haas have always had to watch the budget. That's true. That's true. And I suppose... So, okay. Let's have another couple of questions then to finish off the stream. Does Nico Hulkenberg outscore K-Mag next season? Does Nico Hulkenberg outscore K-Mag next season? What do you think? I'd love to know your thoughts. I don't think he does. I think it'll be a lot closer, though. I think he'll be very close to it. But I don't think he does. I think K-Mag outscores Nico Hulkenberg. And do you think... And I've been live for half an hour, so I don't know if anything's been answered. I agree, John. I think he's closer. Do you think Mick Schumacher goes to the Mercedes reserve role? Is the next one. Do you think he goes to the Mercedes reserve role? But... Actually, I'm shocked I've managed to talk for nearly half an hour about this. It just shows you how long you can talk about F1. I hope he goes there. I hope he goes there. Every piece of news I have here is about Mick Schumacher, so I had to struggle to give you the Sebastian Vettel quote. I bet there are going to be some Sebastian Vettel quotes at the press conferences. I reckon there are. But there we go, guys. Please do make sure you've smashed the like button on the stream. It really, really helps. Let's end the poll there. Oh, Which would you pick, Mick or Nico? 75% of you would pick Mick. But I guess it's not our money, is it? I guess it's not our money. And that's the thing. That is the thing. It's not our money, but 75% of you would have picked Mick. Oh, excuse me. But there we go. I will be live over on Facebook Gaming in a few moments with today's F1 Manager Grand Prix over on Pit Lane Sim Racing. But I'll be live back on this channel tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Please do make sure you're subscribed, and I will see you later. Cheers, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye-bye.